I didn't start eating cloves every day because I read a blog post promising to cure my joint pain or melt away belly fat. To be honest, I started because of a moment of pure, unadulterated boredom. I was standing in my kitchen staring into the spice rack, and I pulled out a jar of whole cloves. I unscrewed the lid, took a whiff of that warm, pungent, almost medicinal aroma, and wondered what would actually happen if I just ate one. It wasn't a pursuit of wellness. It was culinary curiosity. I popped one tiny nail-like bud into my mouth and started to chew. And for the next 10 minutes, my mouth was a science experiment. It wasn't just the heat or the flavor. It was the numbness, the tingle, the immediate cascading rush of saliva. It felt like my entire upper digestive tract had just woken up from a nap, stretched its arms, and was ready to go to work. That feeling, that sudden awakening, is what we're going to unravel today. We aren't here to talk about spices in the context of ancient folklore, though that's interesting. We aren't here to make a list of antioxidant properties and leave it at that, because that's lazy science. We are here to understand what happens when you introduce a potent, bioactive compound like a clove to the most sophisticated chemical sensing apparatus you own, your mouth. We're going to explore the deep neurological ripple effect that starts with a single bite and cascades through your nervous system, your gut, and your immune defenses. Most people think of food as fuel, calories in, energy out. But the truth is far more elegant. Your body doesn't just see a clove as a collection of vitamins. It sees it as a signal, a message. And the message of the clove, specifically the compound eugenol, is one of the most profound anti-inflammatory and regulatory signals you can send. Over the next 7 days, by eating 2 cloves a day, you aren't just adding nutrients. You are training your body's communication systems. You are practicing a form of biological signaling that resets how your nerves perceive pain, how your stomach prepares for digestion, and how your cells manage the slow burn of chronic inflammation. By the end of this video, you'll understand why that little bud is less of a food and more of a tuning fork for your entire physiology. 2. The thesis reframe. Let's hit the pause button right here, because I need to reframe how you think about benefits. If you look up cloves online, you'll get the standard list. Rich in antioxidants, good for digestion, may lower blood sugar. And while those are true, they are surface-level observations. They're the destination, but they don't give you the map. The truth, the slightly shocking truth, is that the power of the clove lies in its ability to trigger what scientists call the cephalic phase response. Now, don't let that term scare you off. Cephalic simply means related to the head. This is the physiological phenomenon where the act of tasting, chewing, and smelling food prepares the rest of your body for what's coming. It's the brain's way of sending a telegraph to the stomach saying, "Wake up, incoming signal." When you chew a clove, the eugenol doesn't just sit in your mouth. It binds to a very specific receptor called TRPV1. You might know TRPV1 as the capsaicin receptor, the same one that makes chili peppers feel hot. But eugenol plays a different tune on the same piano. It creates a sensation of warmth and numbing, which triggers an immediate vagal nerve response. This brings us to the core scientific concept you need to hold on to for the next hour. The vagus nerve. This is your body's superhighway. It runs from your brainstem down to your abdomen, connecting your heart, lungs, and digestive tract. It is the primary line of communication for the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode. When you chew that clove, the sensory fireworks in your mouth send a signal up the vagus nerve to your brain. Your brain then sends a signal back down to your gut, your liver, and even your heart. So, for the next 7 days, you aren't just ingesting a spice. You are performing a daily ritual of vagal toning. You are practicing neurological cascades that tell your entire body to shift from a state of stress-induced inflammation into a state of calm, coordinated function. The list of benefits we are about to count down are not separate miracles. They are all branches of the same tree, rooted in this single, powerful action: sensory signaling. 3. The mechanism, the how it works. Before we dive into the countdown of what you'll feel, you have to understand the stage on which this drama unfolds. If you try this at home, and I hope you do after the safety section, you need to be aware of the 3 distinct phases of action that happen the moment that clove touches your tongue. It's a biological cascade that happens in 3 clear parts. Part 1, the oral alarm system, the TRPV1 activation. Your mouth is not just a hole for food. It is the most guarded border of your internal empire. Lining your tongue and palate are sensory neurons packed with receptors. When you bite into a clove, the eugenol oil is released. This oil immediately activates the TRPV1 receptors. However, unlike capsaicin, which screams, hot, 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 eugenol whispers, warm, and, wait, what is that? This partial activation does two things. First, it causes a local anesthetic effect, that slight numbness you feel. This is eugenol acting as a nerve desensitizer on the surface. But paradoxically, by stimulating the nerve, it sends a massive signal upstream. It's like gently tapping a sleeping giant to wake it up, rather than blasting it with an air horn. This gentle tap is the signal that initiates the cascade. Part 2. The vagus nerve relay, the brain-gut axis. That signal from your mouth doesn't just disappear. It travels via the sensory branches of the vagus nerve up to the nucleus tractus solitarius in your brainstem. Think of the brainstem as the switchboard operator. It receives the message, eugenol detected at the border. The operator then routes the message. It sends signals back down the motor branches of the vagus nerve to your stomach. This triggers the production of gastric juices and enzymes even before the clove is swallowed. This is the cephalic phase in action. Your stomach is now primed. Simultaneously, the brainstem sends a signal to quiet the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response, and amplify the parasympathetic tone. Your heart rate variability may subtly increase, signaling a state of calm alertness. Part 3. The cellular conversation, eugenol systemically. Now, about 20 to 30 minutes later, the digested compounds from the clove enter your bloodstream. This is where the deep cellular work begins. Eugenol is a potent modulator of something called NF-κB, which is a protein complex that acts as a master switch for inflammation. Think of NF-κB as the alarm system inside your cells. In chronic inflammation, that alarm is stuck in the on position, blaring incessantly, exhausting your immune cells. Eugenol gently turns the volume down on that alarm. It doesn't shut it off completely. You need it for real threats, but it stops the false alarms. It modulates the microcirculation, allowing blood vessels to dilate slightly and deliver more oxygen to tissues. It communicates with your liver cells to manage lipid metabolism. It's not a hammer-smashing inflammation. It's a dimmer switch, lowering the lights to a restful, healing level. This is the sophisticated conversation happening inside you, one tiny clove at a time. To 4. The benefits countdown. Now, let's walk through the 7-day transformation. This is not a magic trick, it's biology. We are going to count down from benefit number 10, which you might notice early, to benefit number 1, which is the quiet, foundational master regulator that changes everything. Benefit Charkers 10. The morning mouth, reset and salivary enzyme optimization. Subheading: Waking up the digestive command center. Let's start with the most immediate and tangible effect. What happens in your mouth? For many of us over 40, the first thing we notice in the morning is often a lack of saliva, that dry, cottony feeling. Or perhaps we notice a taste of stagnation. Saliva production can decrease with age, especially if you breathe through your mouth at night or take certain medications. When you chew that first clove of the day, you are forcibly but gently stimulating the glossopharyngeal and facial nerves, which control the salivary glands. This is a massive neurological cascade focused solely on hydration of the mouth. But here's the deeper layer. Saliva is not just water. It contains salivary amylase and lingual lipase, enzymes that begin breaking down starches and fats immediately. By day 3 of this practice, you are essentially exercising these glands. You are maintaining their sensitivity. You are ensuring that the cephalic phase of digestion for every subsequent meal is optimized. A dry mouth leads to poor lubrication, which leads to swallowing partially unprocessed food, which leads to downstream gut stress. By resetting the oral environment with the warming, astringent nature of clove, you are ensuring that the very first step of digestion, mechanical breakdown and enzymatic coating, is performed at 100% capacity. You'll notice your food tastes better because your taste buds are awakened, and you may even notice fresher breath, not because the clove masks the odor, but because you've changed the bacterial environment and increased the cleansing flow of saliva. Benefit number 9, the gastric priming effect, reducing bloating before it starts. Subheading: Preparing the stomach for the war on food. We often think of bloating as something that happens after we eat. We reach for the antacids or the digestive bitters when the damage is done and the pressure is building. But the clove ritual flips this timeline on its head. Remember the vagus nerve relay we discussed? As you chew that clove, the signal has already reached your stomach. The gastric glands, which line the stomach wall, receive the message to produce gastric acid and the enzyme pepsinogen. If you eat your cloves 15 to 20 minutes before a meal, which is the ideal way to do this, you are effectively warming up the engine before you put it under load. When the food finally arrives, the stomach is chemically prepared. The pH drops rapidly to the optimal level for protein breakdown. This rapid acidification is crucial because it signals the lower esophageal sphincter to stay tight, preventing acid reflux, and the pyloric sphincter to prepare to open at the right time. By day 5 or 6, what you'll notice is that the heavy, sinking feeling you used to get after a protein-heavy meal starts to diminish. The food doesn't sit in your stomach like a rock for 4 hours. Why? Because the enzyme activation cascade started early. The fermentation of undigested food in the gut, which causes gas, is minimized because the stomach did its job more efficiently. You aren't treating the bloat. You are engineering the digestive process so that bloat never gets a chance to start. Benefit number 8. The stabilization of the second brain, enteric nervous system. Subheading: calming the gut from the inside out. Your gut contains the enteric nervous system, a mesh-like system of 100 million neurons that lines your gastrointestinal tract from esophagus to anus. It's so complex and independent that neuroscientists call it the second brain. And just like your head brain, it can get irritable, anxious, and spastic. Irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and general gut hypersensitivity are often disorders of the enteric nervous system. The nerves are too reactive. They interpret normal stretching of the gut wall as pain. Eugenol has a unique property as a mild analgesic and smooth muscle relaxant. As it passes through the stomach and into the small intestine, it comes into direct contact with the enteric neurons. It acts as a calming influence on the gut wall. It reduces the hyperexcitability of these nerves. Furthermore, by optimizing the chemical environment, the pH and enzyme activity, you reduce the chemical irritation that can trigger these nerves. Think of it this way. By day 4, the conversation between your brain and your gut becomes less of a panicked text message exchange and more of a calm, steady phone call. This is the gut-brain axis finding its balance. You may notice less butterflies, less urgency after eating, and a more rhythmic, predictable pattern of elimination. Your second brain is finally getting a good night's sleep. Benefit number 7. Microcirculation wake-up call. Warm hands, warm feet. Subheading: why your extremities stop being cold. Here's a benefit that surprises a lot of people in the 40-plus demographic. Around day 3 or 4, you might look down and realize your hands aren't as cold as they usually are. Your feet feel warmer in bed at night. This isn't magic. It's vasodilation. Chronic inflammation and age can lead to endothelial dysfunction. The endothelium is the lining of your blood vessels. When it's inflamed, it loses its ability to relax and dilate properly. Blood flow becomes sluggish, especially to the capillaries in your hands and feet. Eugenol has been shown to possess mild blood-thinning properties, antiplatelet aggregation, and more importantly, it stimulates the release of nitric oxide from the endothelial cells. Nitric oxide is the primary signaling molecule that tells smooth muscles surrounding arteries to relax. By consuming cloves daily, you are sending a systemic signal to your circulatory system. Loosen up, let flow. This improves microcirculation, the flow of blood through the tiniest vessels. This isn't just about temperature, it's about delivery. Warm hands and feet mean that oxygen, white blood cells, and nutrients are reaching the outer reaches of your biological territory. It means your body is capable of repairing the small, daily damage that accumulates in your skin and extremities. You are literally warming yourself from the inside by fixing the communication lines between your blood vessel walls. Benefit number 6. The joint lubrication signal, reducing morning stiffness. Subheading: turning down the inflammatory noise in the synovium. For anyone over 45, morning stiffness is often the first herald of the day. You get out of bed and your knees feel creaky, your fingers feel puffy, and it takes a good 20 minutes of moving around to feel human again. This is largely due to the accumulation of inflammatory cytokines in the joint spaces overnight while you were immobile. We return to the master switch, NF-κB. In the synovial membranes that line your joints, NF-κB can be chronically upregulated, producing low-grade inflammation. As eugenol enters your bloodstream, it works on the synovial fibroblasts, the cells that produce joint fluid. It inhibits the enzymes, like COX2 and lipoxygenase, that produce pro-inflammatory molecules. But it doesn't just numb the pain like an ibuprofen would. It addresses the signal. By down-regulating the inflammation at the cellular level, the synovial membrane can resume its normal function, producing healthy, viscous synovial fluid. By day 6 or 7, you may notice that the first step in the morning isn't as jarring. The creakiness subsides not because you've masked the pain, but because the chemical environment within the joint is less hostile. The homeostasis of the joint is being restored. It's a slow, quiet shift, not a dramatic crack, but a gradual, welcome easing of resistance. Benefit number 5, the hepatic reset, liver enzyme optimization. Subheading, teaching the liver to process smarter, not harder. Your liver is your body's primary filtration and processing plant. After 40, this organ can become sluggish, not because it's full of toxins, a pseudoscientific concept, but because it's constantly working on processing dietary fats, alcohol, medications, and metabolic byproducts. This constant load leads to oxidative stress within the liver cells, or hepatocytes. Research into compounds like eugenol shows a phenomenon called hormesis. This is where a small, mild stressor actually makes a cell stronger. When the liver encounters eugenol, it gently upregulates its own antioxidant enzyme systems, particularly glutathione S-transferase. Think of it as sending your liver's janitorial staff to a training seminar. The janitors, antioxidant enzymes, come back better at their jobs. They become more efficient at neutralizing the free radicals produced during normal metabolism. Over 7 days, you are essentially fine-tuning your liver's ability to handle fats. This can lead to subtle shifts in energy levels, as the liver is less burdened by oxidative stress. It may also support healthier lipid profiles as the liver becomes more adept at processing and clearing LDL cholesterol. You aren't detoxing, you are upgrading the liver's internal management software. Benefit number 4, the respiratory passage widening, deeper breaths. Deeper. Subheading, why congestion loosens its grip. Here's a benefit that connects directly back to that initial sensation in the mouth, the numbing, warming effect. Have you ever noticed how vaporous substances like menthol or eucalyptus make it feel easier to breathe? Clove operates on a similar but deeper physiological level. Eugenol is an expectorant, but let's look at the mechanism. The lungs and airways are lined with smooth muscle and mucous membranes. In cases of mild congestion, whether from allergies, dry air, or the tail end of a cold, the airways can become constricted and coated with thick mucus. The volatile oils in clove, when they enter the bloodstream, are partially excreted through the respiratory tract. As they pass through the lung tissue, they stimulate the cilia, the tiny hair-like structures that line the airways. This stimulation causes the cilia to beat more forcefully, moving mucus upward and out. Simultaneously, the anti-inflammatory action on the smooth muscle of the bronchioles allows for slight dilation. By day 3 or 4 of your clove ritual, you might notice that your breathing feels a little cleaner. That slight tightness in your chest after sleeping in a dry room diminishes. You aren't curing asthma, but you are supporting the natural clearance mechanisms of the lungs, making it easier for your body to keep the airways clear and functional. Benefit Rs 3, the oral microbiome shift. Gum health fortification. Subheading, building a better defense against periodontal stress. We talked about saliva in Benefit Rs 10, but now we're looking at the specific chemistry of that saliva and the tissue it bathes. Gum disease, periodontitis, is a chronic inflammatory condition that affects a huge percentage of the population over 40. It's also linked systemically to heart disease, as the inflammation from the gums can enter the bloodstream. Clove has a long history in dentistry for a reason. The eugenol interacts with the oral tissues in 2 distinct ways. First, it has a selective antimicrobial effect. It doesn't blast all bacteria like a pharmaceutical mouthwash. Rather, it helps suppress the populations of pathogenic bacteria, like Porphyromonas gingivalis, that thrive in an inflammatory environment, while allowing healthier flora to persist. Second, it strengthens the fibroblasts in the gum tissue itself. Fibroblasts are cells that create the connective tissue that holds your gums tight against your teeth. Chronic inflammation causes these fibroblasts to retract and die, leading to receding gums. By reducing the inflammatory signal in the gums, eugenol helps maintain the structural integrity of the gum tissue. Over the course of the week, you might notice that your gums look pinker, feel tighter, and don't bleed as easily when you floss. You are fortifying the very foundation of your dental health through a systemic anti-inflammatory signal that starts the moment you chew. Benefit number 2, the neuroprotective hum, cognitive clarity. Subheading, calming the microglial drivers of brain fog. This is a fascinating and emerging area of research. Brain fog, that feeling of mental fatigue, slow recall, and lack of sharpness, is increasingly understood to be linked to inflammation in the brain. The brain has its own immune cells called microglia. When microglia become chronically activated by systemic inflammation, they release inflammatory chemicals that can interfere with synaptic signaling. This is where the clove's ability to cross the blood-brain barrier becomes relevant. Eugenol is lipophilic, fat-soluble, meaning it can penetrate the protective layers of the brain. Once there, it acts as a calming agent on overexcited microglia. It inhibits the production of inflammatory cytokines within the brain tissue itself. This is the neurological cascade we hinted at in the opening. By lowering the inflammatory noise in the brain, the neurons can communicate more efficiently. By day 5 or 6 of this practice, many people report a subtle but distinct sense of clarity. It's not a caffeine-like jolt of energy. It's more like the static between radio stations fading out, leaving a clearer signal. You might find that you're less reactive, less prone to mid-afternoon slumps in focus, and that your memory recall feels slightly less effortful. You are essentially giving your brain's immune system a chance to stand down from red alert, allowing your thinking mind to take the lead. 5. The number 1 reveal. Benefit. Number 1. The master regulator of inflammation, turning down the thermostat. Subheading. The quiet secret that connects everything. And now we arrive at benefit number 1. The secret that ties together warm hands, clear thoughts, flexible joints, and a calm gut. The reason you feel different after 7 days isn't because you've added a superfood. It's because you've re-educated your body's response to stress. Benefit number 1 is systemic inflammatory set point modulation. Think of your body as having an internal thermostat, but instead of temperature, it regulates inflammation. For many of us over 40, due to years of processed foods, environmental factors, emotional stress, and lack of sleep, that thermostat has been slowly creeping up. It's set to 72 degrees, but it's running at 74. You don't notice the extra 2 degrees because it's become your new normal. But those 2 degrees are the difference between a body that glides through the day and one that creaks, fogs, and bloats. The symphony of signals sent by eugenol over 7 days, starting with the vagal tone in the mouth and ending with the NF-κB inhibition in the cells, gently resets that thermostat. It doesn't force it down with a harsh chemical hammer. It whispers to it. It tells the heat shock proteins, the cytokines, and the immune cells that the threat level has been overestimated. It's time to cool down. This is why the truth in our title isn't shocking in a sensational way. The truth is shockingly elegant. Your body wants to be in a state of homeostasis. It wants to be healthy. But the noise of modern life drowns out its own regulatory signals. The clove acts as a tuning fork. It provides a clear, strong, natural signal that your body can lock onto to remember what calm feels like. This circles back to my opening story. I wasn't looking for a miracle. I was just curious about the tingling. But what I found, and what the research supports, is that by engaging in this simple, daily practice of sensory signaling, you are reminding your entire physiology, from your brainstem to your kneecaps, how to rest, how to digest, and how to regulate. The substance, the clove, is important, but the method, the daily mindful signaling, is the real secret. 6. Practical application. How to do it safely. If you're ready to try this 7-day experiment for yourself, here's exactly how to do it to maximize the benefits while respecting the power of the plant. Source: buy organic whole cloves. Ground cloves lose their volatile oils very quickly. You want the whole buds. They should be plump, oily, and fragrant. If they look shriveled and smell weak, buy fresh ones. The protocol: for 7 days, consume 2 whole cloves. You have 2 options. The slow chew, recommended. Take 1 clove, place it in your mouth and chew it slowly, mixing it with saliva. Allow it to soften. This takes about 2 to 3 minutes per clove. This maximizes the cephalic phase response and the vagal nerve stimulation. The tea, gentle option. If chewing is too intense, crush 2 cloves and let them steep in hot water for 10 minutes, covered, to capture the volatile oils. Drink the tea slowly, swishing it slightly before swallowing. Timing: consume them 20-30 minutes before your largest meal of the day. Usually, this is lunch or dinner. This primes the digestive system exactly when it's needed. Hydration: drink a glass of warm water afterwards. This helps disperse the oils and aids in the gastric priming. Observation: Keep a simple journal. Note your energy levels, joint stiffness in the morning, digestive ease, and mental clarity. The changes are subtle. Writing them down helps you see the pattern. 7. Critical safety warnings. This is not a game. Cloves are medicine and they demand respect. Please read this section carefully. This protocol is not for everyone. Blood thinning. Eugenol has antiplatelet properties. If you are on blood-thinning medication, like warfarin, Eliquis, or even daily aspirin, do not start this protocol without consulting your doctor. Combining them could increase the risk of bruising or bleeding. Surgery. If you have any scheduled surgery, stop eating cloves at least 2 weeks prior, due to the bleeding risk. Blood sugar. Cloves can lower blood sugar. If you are a diabetic on insulin or oral hypoglycemics, monitor your blood sugar closely. You may need an adjustment in medication. Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, is a serious risk. Liver conditions. While we discussed liver benefits, in extremely high doses, eugenol can be toxic to the liver. We are using a physiological dose, 2 cloves, not a pharmacological megadose. Do not exceed 2 to 3 cloves per day. Allergies. If you have a known allergy to spices in the Myrtaceae family, which includes allspice, eucalyptus, or guava, you may react to cloves. Start with a tiny nibble to test. Mucous membranes. Do not apply ground clove oil directly to skin or gums without a carrier oil. It can cause burns and tissue damage. The whole clove is self-limiting. It will burn if you chew too many, which is your body's safety signal. Children and pregnancy. This protocol is designed for the 40-plus demographic. Pregnant and breastfeeding women should avoid medicinal use of cloves due to a lack of safety data. Do not give whole cloves to small children due to choking hazard and potency. Stop immediately. If you experience any signs of an allergic reaction, rash, itching, swelling, severe heartburn, or unusual bleeding, nosebleeds, bleeding gums. 8. Engagement closing. So, after all that science, after all that deep dive into the vagus nerve and the cephalic phase, I have to ask you, are you brave enough to try the tingling? It's such a simple thing. 2 little buds, 1 week, but it represents something much larger. It represents a shift from treating your body like a machine that needs parts replaced, to treating it like a garden that needs the right signals to bloom. It's an acknowledgement that you don't have to resort to extreme protocols or expensive supplements to find balance. Sometimes the most profound medicine is hiding in plain sight, right there in your spice rack, waiting to have a conversation with your nervous system. If you've tried cloves before, or if you start this 7-day journey, come back to the comments and tell me what you noticed. Did it change your digestion, your warmth, your clarity? Let's build a community of curious experimenters, not believers in magic, but students of biology. If you found this deeper science-based perspective on health refreshing, please hit that subscribe button. We don't do hype here, we do understanding. We explore the elegant mechanisms that keep you running. And as you go about your week, chewing your cloves or sipping your tea, remember this. In a world that's constantly screaming for your attention, demanding a fight-or-flight response, you have the power to choose a different signal. You can choose the warm, quiet, persistent signal of the clove. You can remind your body, one tiny bud at a time, that it's safe. It's time to rest. It's time to heal. That gentle reminder might just be the most powerful thing you can give yourself after 40.